A loving mother, sister, and daughter now at the center of a murder investigation. Memphis police found the 25-year-old killed in the Nutbush neighborhood. The woman's family continues to mourn while police search for her killer in tonight's Manhunt Monday.
He took my little sister for nothing, man. She ain't do nothing to nobody.
She believed love was worth waiting for. While many people would have walked away, she stayed loyal. She supported the man she loved throughout his prison sentence, convinced that once he came home, they could finally build the life they had dreamed about. Family photographs, social media posts, and hopeful messages painted the picture of a woman excited for a fresh start. But only days after his release, that dream came to a violent end. 26-year-old Jerriny Caples was found dead inside her vehicle with a gunshot wound to the head. Was this a tragic coincidence? Did someone from her past catch up with her? Or did the new chapter she had been waiting for become the reason her life was cut short? Years later, investigators still haven't publicly identified the person responsible. This is the story of Jerriny Caples. Behind every homicide investigation is a person whose life meant everything to the people who knew them. Before becoming another headline, Jerriny Caples was a daughter, a friend, and most importantly, a mother of 2 young children. Those who knew her described someone who cared deeply about the people she loved. Like many young adults, she shared moments of her life online, celebrating milestones, posting family photos, and expressing hope for the future. She wasn't famous. She wasn't living in the spotlight. She was simply trying to move forward with her life. No one around her could have imagined that her name would one day become part of an unsolved murder investigation. Life hadn't always been easy for Jerriny. As a young mother, she carried responsibilities that required strength and determination every single day. Raising children while navigating relationships, work, and everyday challenges isn't simple. Yet friends say she continued pushing forward. Then came someone she believed could change everything. The relationship wasn't perfect. In fact, one major obstacle stood between them. The man she loved was incarcerated. For many couples, prison becomes the end of a relationship. Distance grows, communication fades, promises disappear, but Jerriny made a different choice. She stayed, she waited, she believed their story wasn't over. Supporting someone behind bars isn't easy. Visits require planning. Phone calls are limited. Letters become treasured memories. Every conversation is filled with anticipation for the day freedom finally arrives. Based on her social media activity, Jerriny appeared excited as that day approached. She openly celebrated the idea that her boyfriend would soon return home. To her, prison wasn't the end. It was simply another obstacle they would overcome together. After spending so much time apart, she believed they could finally begin living the life they had imagined. From the outside looking in, it seemed like hope had replaced uncertainty. But sometimes, the moments people appear happiest can hide dangers no one else can see. Eventually, the day arrived. Her boyfriend was released from prison. For Jerriny, this wasn't just another date on the calendar. It represented a second chance, a fresh beginning, a future she had patiently waited for. Social media posts from that period reflected excitement and optimism. Friends saw someone who looked genuinely happy. Nothing publicly suggested that tragedy was only days away. If anyone had warned her that her life would soon end, it's almost impossible to imagine she would have believed them. Instead, she focused on moving forward. But somewhere during those few short days after his release, something changed. Investigators would later begin reconstructing Jerriny's last known movements. Like every homicide investigation, detectives needed answers to basic but critical questions. Who spoke with her last? Where did she go? Who was she with? What happened during her final hours? Each phone call, each text message, each social media post, each surveillance camera could potentially hold a clue. To investigators, even the smallest detail can become the missing piece that solves a murder. But at that moment, none of those answers were available. Her family still believed they would see her again. Her friends had no reason to think anything was wrong. To everyone around her, life seemed to be continuing as normal. Then came the day that changed countless lives forever. Instead of celebrating a new beginning, those closest to Jerriny would soon receive devastating news. A routine day would become the start of a homicide investigation. Questions would replace celebrations. Hope would turn into heartbreak. And detectives would find themselves searching for a killer whose identity remains publicly unknown. What exactly happened during Jerriny Caples' final hours? Who was the last person to see her alive? And why has this case remained surrounded by unanswered questions? Those are the questions we'll examine next. On November 11, 2021, police in Memphis, Tennessee, responded to reports of a shooting in the city's Nutbush neighborhood. When officers arrived, they found 26-year-old Jerriny Caples inside her vehicle. She had suffered a gunshot wound to the head. Despite the efforts of first responders, there was nothing they could do. Jerriny was pronounced dead at the scene. In an instant, a young mother of two was gone. For her family, the news was unimaginable. Just days earlier, she had been looking forward to building a future. Now they were left asking the same question detectives would spend months trying to answer. Who killed Jerriny Caples? As officers secured the scene, investigators immediately began treating the case as a homicide. Crime scene technicians carefully documented every piece of evidence. They photographed the vehicle, collected forensic evidence, and searched for anything that might explain what had happened. Every homicide investigation starts with the same basic questions. Was this a targeted attack? Was it connected to someone she knew? Or was there another motive entirely? Detectives worked to reconstruct Jerriny's final hours. They reviewed phone records, interviewed family members and friends, and examined her recent activities in hopes of identifying anyone who may have had contact with her shortly before her death. In cases like this, investigators often rely on surveillance cameras, witness statements, and digital evidence to build a timeline. Even a seemingly insignificant detail can become the key to solving a crime. But in Jerriny's case, publicly available information has remained limited. One aspect of the case quickly attracted public attention. Jerriny had openly supported her boyfriend while he was serving time in prison. After his release, she appeared excited to begin a new chapter with him. Because of that timeline, many people on social media began speculating about whether the relationship had anything to do with her death. However, it's important to separate speculation from confirmed facts. As of the latest publicly available information, law enforcement has not publicly charged or identified her boyfriend as a suspect in Jerriny's murder. In any homicide investigation, detectives examine the victim's relationships, recent interactions, and daily routine. That is standard investigative procedure and does not by itself indicate anyone's guilt. Without official evidence or criminal charges, it would be irresponsible to conclude who was responsible. That distinction matters, not only for the integrity of the investigation, but also for everyone affected by the case. Loved ones were left to grieve. For her children, they had lost their mother. For her family, every birthday, holiday, or even milestone became another painful reminder that every murder is solved quickly. The unanswered questions made the loss even more difficult. Some investigations are complicated by a lack of eyewitnesses, meant another day without justice. Others depend on forensic evidence. For many families of homicide victims, or inconclusive. The emotional burden. Sometimes witnesses are reluctant to come forward because they're afraid. They continue living with uncertainty. Other times, detectives may have information from investigators might finally bring answers, because doing so could jeopardize the investigation. An unsolved case doesn't necessarily mean investigators have stopped working. In many departments, detectives continue reviewing evidence, following up on tips, and re-examining cases whenever new information becomes available. Even years later, a single witness, surveillance video, or forensic breakthrough can change everything. As of today, Jerriny Caples' murder remains publicly unsolved. Authorities have not announced an arrest or publicly identified a person responsible. If new evidence emerges, investigators may be able to piece together what happened during those final hours. Until then, her family continues to wait for the answers they deserve. Behind every unsolved case is more than a police file. There are children growing up without a parent, parents mourning a child, friends remembering someone whose life ended far too soon, and a community hoping that justice will one day prevail. Jerriny Caples believed she was entering a new chapter in her life. Instead, her story ended in tragedy. While many questions remain unanswered, one fact is undeniable. A young mother lost her life, and her loved ones continue to live with that loss every day. Cases like this remind us that behind every headline is a real person with dreams, relationships, and people who love them. If someone knows what happened to Jerriny, even the smallest piece of information could make a difference. Justice often begins with someone choosing to speak. Jerriny Caples' story is one of hope, heartbreak, and unanswered questions. By remembering victims like her, we help ensure their stories are not forgotten. If you found this documentary thoughtful and informative, please consider subscribing to the channel. We share carefully researched true crime stories that focus on the facts while honoring the victims and their families. Leave a respectful comment below with your thoughts on the case, and if you know of another unsolved case that deserves attention, let us know. Finally, share this video. Sometimes the right person seeing the right story can help bring new attention to a case that still needs answers. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, every victim has a story, and every story deserves to be told.